Hey, it's Joe. This is the Inventory Property tab. This is where all your properties are that are in your system. So no matter if you have one lead that has 20 properties or 100 leads with one property each, they'll all be found in this section here. And we've created a way to search in a lot of different ways to make that happen. Right now you can see that they're listing just my properties only. So if I scroll down the page, all these are the properties, and this is a Sandbox account, but all these properties in this section here are properties that are attached to the leads that I have in my system. I can also search for other users' public properties. Now these are other people that are also using the Auto Marketer that are willing to let me put their properties on my site. Now when I put them on my site, they'll show up as sold. I'm not partnering with these people or doing any of that type of thing. But what it does is allows me to be able to put these properties on my listing site so that it looks like I'm in business even if I don't have any properties, if I'm just getting started and I don't have any properties. So I'll show you how that works in this video as well. And then I'm going to show you what the published data feed is. That's the properties that I've picked, including my own and other users' properties, the properties I've picked to put on my listing site. So I can manage everything from here. I can also, and if you'll see, we've got some different ways to filter these. So I can do that by that feature. I can do it by whether the lead is a buyer or a seller. I can do it by how many bedrooms they have and how many baths they have, assuming that information has been put in these properties. I can do it by property type. I can do it by what type of financing it's going to be. I can do it by the date that it was created or by a date range. I can do it by putting in a city and state. So if I'm looking for other properties, let's say I want to look at properties in Texas that I want to add to my list, I can do that by just filtering in the state. I can search by keywords that are within those property pages, and I can do it by minimum and maximum price. In addition to that, I can do it with look for properties just with properties that have images in them. A lot of properties, when they're just leads, they don't have images. After they become real deals, then a lot of times you'll have images, so it makes it a little easier to find your properties if you use that button. You can also select specific properties individually, and then it will allow you to do a couple of global functions with these properties. I can just clear those checkboxes. I can mark the property as sold. I can unmark it as sold. And if I mark it as sold, there's a little banner that goes across here that says sold on the picture on the listing site. I can publish those selected listings, which puts them on the listing site, or I can take them off the listing site if I want to unpublish them. I'll just clear that for now. Let me explain what the property details section for. First, you have a thumbnail of your main picture here. This is the main picture that's going to show up on your listing site. So if you have multiple pictures, this is the one that's going to be the main picture on the listing site for this property. You can put a title in here, and this has a short title on it, but you can put up to 2 lines on the title. You can put the address will be in there, the bedrooms and baths, square footage, and some other information about the property will be there. It'll have the lead's name, or if there's no name, it'll just have a link that you can go to that specific lead's sheet if you want to. Or you can go to the property sheet. The lead location and the property location are 2 different places. The property location is attached to the lead. And then I can also assign it to a team user or a team member if I choose to. And I can tell it whether it's under contract, if it's a prospect, if it's pending, if it's closed, and we can change that on demand as well. If I want to edit this, I can click on this Edit Property, and it'll open up the seller questionnaire. All the information that you filled out when you talked to that seller, bedrooms and baths, and all the questions you had for them are all in that Edit Property tab. I can assign a team member. This one already has a team member assigned to it. So let's go down here and let's take this other, what did I do this? Let's get images only and do another search so I have some more properties to look at that have images a little bit prettier. All right, let's say that I want to assign, I've got another property here and I want to assign assign a user to this particular property. the first thing I do, and by assigning the user, the team member to a property, you're doing that only for one reason here. Not to put them in as that's their lead, but to put them in as that's their lead on the listing site. So when it shows up on the listing site, it'll show their name and phone number rather than the default. So the first thing I have to do is I have to put them on the listing site. So let me show you what the listing site looks like real quickly. Here's the listing site for this account, and you can see these properties that we had are on there. Now you can also see that there's some of them here that are sold. These are from the data feed, and these are other users' properties. So they're on here just to make it look like we've got more properties on than we actually do. And these properties at the top are the properties that we have in our account. As you can see, this has Joe Crump and this phone number set up as the team member on this account. If you'll see, I've got Joe Crump with this phone number set up on this particular account. And I can change that if I want by going into here. I can either pick the team member, and all the team members you have, since the team management allows you to assign multiple phone numbers to a team member, I can pick which phone number I want for that particular team member. So if I'm working in Indiana, for example, and the property's in Indiana, then I'd want to put a 317 area code on there. If I'm working in a 2110 area code for that property, or that property is in a 210 area code, then I might want to put this number in here for that particular team member, so the people that are calling on it can call a local number on that property. So I can do that with any of the people that I've got. If the team member is inactive, it'll show inactive on here, and it won't be applicable. You can also, instead of doing it that way, I can do it by creating any name in here and putting in a phone number. And if I do that and save it, it'll change it to this. And if I go back to the website, you'll see it's still here until I refresh. And when I refresh the property, it shows up with this new phone number. So let me go back here and just get rid of that. And let's pull this one back. Now, to get them on this listing site in the first place, what I'm going to do is check mark this little I. So if it's not green, that means it's not on your listing site. If it is green, then it's on your listing site, and you can add it or remove it. If I wanted to remove that property from it, it'll do that. And if I go here and refresh, you'll see that that property has disappeared. If I bring it back, it brings it back, but it brings it back with the default user. So if I wanted to change that user again, I could do that, or I could modify that. But it's always going to go to the default of the account holder's name and the account number holder's phone number, unless you make a modification here and pick a team member or do something different. So I'll leave that as it is. If I want to delete this property, I can delete it here. And if I want to edit it, I can click on this button and it'll edit it. I can also add a new property here. I can fill out this information and I can save it, and it'll add it to my inventory list. Of course, you can always add these properties in through your leads as well. If you go into the lead itself, you can add those properties here as well by simply going to add lead properties and add a property, and then you can see the list of properties that that particular lead has. Or you can scroll down the page and you can go to the property manager and you can add a property there. So there's lots of different ways that you can get to this information, and you can see the tutorial videos that teach you more about how these panels work. Now when it's time to add other users' properties here, I can do this. I'll search, and you'll see they all show up with sold signs next to them. We're not trying to sell their properties. And you can see that I've got 2 of them here that are already in my list. And if I want to filter by state, I can do that. There's a bunch of different states here, but let's say I only want to do Texas. So if I put Texas on here and I search again, and you'll see I've got some other properties available. So let's say I want this great 4-bedroom home I want to add to my listing site. I can click that, and let's say I want to add this one and this one as well. Instead of, let's say I do a whole bunch of them and I pick the ones I want, then I can go up here and I can publish selected listings. Now you'll see all the ones that I've got published at the top of the list. And as you can see, there are 5 of them here that from that site. Now you'll also notice that there's an I next to it, but there's no assigned team member thing on here until we decide to put it on the data feed. If you don't assign a team member, it'll give you the default team member, which is this. This is the default for this particular account. But if I want to change that, again, I can just switch that out and put a team member, or I can type something in specifically and assign it, and then it'll show up on the listing site in this section right here with a name and a phone number. The last thing that I can do here is I can look at your published data feed, and if I search that and I get rid of Texas, then you'll see all the properties that are on that page. So that's the inventory page.